What about scarcity? See, people in publishing sort of wish that self-published authors, bloggers, people on the fringes, even aggressive small presses would sort of disappear because they're making a lot of noise. And it would be better if we could go back to the day when only a dozen companies could roll out a big new book. But we're going in the other direction, right? That Random House did an astonishingly great job of rolling out Dan Brown. But if Dan Brown was monetarily focused, he could have self-published his next book and made 4 times as much money. Because people already know who he is. The word would spread. He could reach the people he wanted to reach. He wouldn't have to take the risk of putting it in all these bookstores because he would have been content to sell half as many because he would have been making 4 times as much per copy. Sell it all online. That's enough. And then turn around and license the store rights to somebody else because he owns the asset. That's the key. Creating scarcity. Creating something that no one else has. Too often, the people in this industry have given scarcity away instead of creating scarcity. The one and only. The one you can't live without. Now, we talked at the beginning about selection, which is the best part of publishing. Right? Selecting the wheat from the chaff, figuring out the really good stuff. How much time do publishers really get to spend today on the selection part? And what would happen if you could reorganize so that you're not taking a financial risk on every single book you select? You're just taking a brand risk. What happens if you can look at the long tail of books that are available and start, just to pick one out of the sky, a business book club? So you go to 1 million, 4 million, 10 million people who want every month, the same way Book of the Month Club used to do, the best business book delivered on the topic that they love. We're waiting for someone to step up and do that. Amazon's sort of afraid to do it. They don't want to alienate and say that we're not everyone. But one of you can do it. One of you can get permission from an audience of people and then go out and instead of finding readers for your writers, find writers for your readers, which is a totally different way of thinking about what you do all day. The reason that magazines, until recently, made 10 times the return on equity of booksellers, of publishers, 10 times, is because if you have a magazine with a bunch of subscribers, you get to spend all your time finding writers for your readers. That gives you leverage. But book publishers, a book shows up, and they got to scramble around to go find new readers for it. And that's painful and expensive. So last one I'm going to touch on, and then my favorite part, we'll have a conversation, some Q&A and stuff, is this idea of viral. With all the book review sections gone, with professional critics basically being irrelevant for almost any kind of book published, how do you spread the word? The answer is you don't spread the word. The readers spread the word. And so the question to you is, what are you doing in the selection of books, in the marketing of books, in the production of books that makes them worth talking about? Because if they're not worth talking about, they won't get talked about. If they don't get talked about, no one knows they exist. I'll give you one simple example. Urban Outfitters is now selling a journal published by Penguin aimed at teenagers. I think it's called Wreck This Book or something like that. And it's one of those blank books, but with a little cue on every single page about what you ought to write in it. They only sold 1,000 of them. But then every single one of the people who bought one took it out at school and started writing it. Every single one of those 1,000 people started using it in public. And once you use it in public, the people around you say, "Oh, what's that?" And then they go to Urban Outfitters and buy another one. And then someone else goes and buy another one. And so it's up to 360,000 so copies sold in the last 18 months. Because they did something that people wanted to talk about. And that's what makes it spread. It's choosing to design something so that people walk up to one another and say, "Want to see my socks?" Well, "Want to see my socks" is the entire mantra of this company. They make socks that don't match on purpose, so that when one person runs into someone else, they'll talk about it. Now, you may not like that. You may have more fun publishing a Nobel Prize winner or publishing someone who's written a very thoughtful thing in Finnish that you've had translated. That's fine, but it's not a business, not today. until you find the club and the group of people who are desperate to read your finished translation and want to connect with each other. And you build the online site that makes it easy for them to do that. You figure out how to make connections. You figure out how to build this tribe on behalf of the author so that the next author who's sort of like her knows that you're the only person in the world they could imagine being the publisher. I have never been more bullish about the opportunity for people who want to take ideas in print and spread them and profit from them. But I'm a little dubious about the current model of let's chop down a bunch of trees and a year from now, sell them at a local Barnes & Noble. And what I'm hoping is that some of my enthusiasm came through on top of the cynicism about the status quo. Because if anyone's going to see the opportunities, it's you guys. And I hope for the sake of me and the other people who have ideas to spread that you run with it, because we need you. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Do you want to take questions?
I do.
Okay, great. So, any questions for Seth?
Yes, sir.
How do you see the iPhone and or mobile publishing fitting into the picture?
Well, you know, the thing that's cool about the iPhone, I had one, but I put it in my briefcase. Permission to talk to me on my iPhone is pretty high because it's on my person. If it makes a little sound because something has arrived, I'm going to pay attention to it. Right? It's like calling me at home during dinner times 10. So the race is to figure out how to get on that device, how to get an app there that people want to check. Now the mindset of the status quo is, okay, and we'll give them a free chapter hoping that they'll go buy something. No, it has to be generous. It has to be, we're going to give them whole books. That we're going to, you know, Louis L'Amour has got 100 million books in print. The first 10, they don't sell so great anymore. So those 10, we're just going to keep giving to people who want to own this app. That every week something exciting shows up that they've never seen before. They want it. It's one of a kind. They'll race to get their hands on it. Once you open that little permission door, then you can make it wider and wider and wider until you're getting share of wallet, share of attention. That's the race now. So the number of choices people have on how they spend their time keeps going up. And the only way you win is if you keep up or expand your share of my downtime.